We will begin our inaugural video with an introduction to the writings of John Locke and Algernon Sidney, and why they are important to the American founding and to the liberties we enjoy today. John Locke, on the left, was born in England in 1632. He was an Oxford scholar, medical researcher, and physician, as well as being one of the great political philosophers of the late 17th and early 18th centuries. In this class, we will focus on Locke's essay concerning the true original extent and end of civil government, also known as his second treatise on government. Algernon Sidney, on the right, was born in Kent, England, 10 years before Locke, in 1622. Sidney served as a colonel in the army and as a member of Parliament, and was a noted historian and political philosopher. During his exile in Europe, he wrote his Discourses concerning government, which Thomas Jefferson endorsed as probably the best elementary book of the principles of government as founded in natural right which has ever been published in any language. In the spring of 1825, when the University of Virginia was ready to open for classes, Thomas Jefferson and James Madison corresponded with one another, and then they met with the new university's Board of Visitors on March 4th of that year. In that meeting, they adopted a resolution that read in part, "Resolved, that it is the opinion of this board that as to the general principles of liberty and rights of man in nature and in society, the doctrines of Locke in his essay concerning the true original extent and end of civil government, and of Sidney in his Discourses on government, may be considered as those generally approved by our fellow citizens of Virginia and the United States." So we may ask, according to Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence, and James Madison, the father of the Constitution, where do we find the general principles of liberty and rights of man in nature and society? In the writings of Locke and Sidney. These principles may also be referred to as natural rights principles, or the laws of nature and of nature's God, to quote from the Declaration. As we turn to our first quote from Locke's second treatise on government, consider how it parallels with Jefferson's language in the Declaration of Independence. The state of nature has a law of nature to govern it, which obliges everyone, and reason, which is that law, teaches all mankind, who will but consult it, that being all equal and independent, no one ought to harm another in his life, health, liberty, or possessions. From this quote, we learn that, first, nature has laws that govern it. Second, through nature's law, reason teaches all mankind that we are all created equal and independent. And third, nature's law is that no one should harm another person in their life, health, liberty, or possessions. Locke later confirms that this equality does not mean that we are all equal in our virtues, wealth, or in our physical and mental capabilities, but that the equality spoken of is the equal right that every man hath to his natural freedom. In other words, we are all created equal in our natural rights. Our first quote from Algernon Sidney echoes Locke and also serves as a window into Jefferson's language in the Declaration. The principle of liberty in which God created us includes the chief advantages of the life we enjoy, as well as the greatest helps towards felicity that is the end of our hopes in the other. From this quote, we understand that, first, God created us to be free in the principle of liberty. Second, the principle of liberty includes the life we enjoy. Third, the principle of liberty is the greatest help towards felicity or happiness. And fourth, happiness is the end or purpose of our hopes in this life. Sidney clearly makes reference to the divine connection between liberty, life, and happiness. Stating it another way, the Declaration of Independence states, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." We will talk more about the Declaration in our next video, but we can already see just from these two quotes of Locke and Sidney, the significant association between a few of the natural law principles taught by them and the enduring language of the Declaration of Independence. Let's briefly review just one more quote from each of Locke and Sidney. In his second treatise, Locke states, "The end of the law is not to abolish or restrain, but to preserve and enlarge freedom. For in all the states of created beings capable of laws, where there is no law, there is no freedom." So, the end, or purpose of law, is not to abolish or restrain freedom, but to preserve and enlarge freedom. We may judge all human laws by this standard, and in order to maintain freedom, we must have just laws. For where there is no law, there is no freedom. Lawlessness leads to chaos and anarchy, and unjust laws that abolish or restrain freedom lead to oppression and tyranny. Next, in his Discourses, Sidney writes about virtue. Virtue is the dictate of reason, or the remains of divine light, by which men are made beneficent and beneficial to each other. Religion proceeds from the same spring and tends to the same end, and the good of mankind so entirely depends upon the two that no people ever enjoyed anything worth desiring that was not the product of them, and whatsoever any have suffered, that which deserves to be abhorred and feared, has proceeded either from the defect of these or the wrath of God against them. If any leader, therefore, has been an enemy to virtue and religion, he must have also been an enemy to mankind, and most especially to the people under him. Let's analyze this important passage. First, virtue is the dictate or guide of our reason, and the remains of divine light or conscience, by which men are made beneficent or beneficial to each other. An example is the Golden Rule, to do unto others as we would have them do unto us. This shows how virtue guides our reason, inspires our conscience, and leads us to bless and to benefit others. Second, religion proceeds from the same spring of virtue or source and tends to the same end. In other words, to bless and benefit mankind. Third, the good of mankind entirely depends upon both virtue and religion, such that no people enjoyed anything worth desiring that was not the product of the two. And conversely, whatsoever any people have suffered, that which deserves to be abhorred and feared, has proceeded either from the defect of these, virtue or religion, or the wrath of God. Virtue and its companion pure religion serve to bless and benefit mankind. These stand in opposition to vice and any religion or belief system that has been corrupted to cause human fear and suffering. Fourth, leaders that prove to be enemies of virtue and religion are enemies of mankind and to the people they claim to serve. How does all this relate to our liberty and to the Constitution? John Adams said it well. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and a religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. And George Washington confirmed this in his farewell address. Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. In vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism who should labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness. If you want to learn more about Locke and Sidney and the general principles of liberty and rights of man in nature and society, and why they matter today, download for free Jefferson and Madison's Guide to the Constitution using the link provided on the end screen. Thank you for joining us. We invite you to subscribe to Liberty U on YouTube and follow our blog and like our Facebook page.